44 years ago, my working career began in 1975. I had a high demanding job at a financial institution. I held many positions: teller, operations officer, supervisor, and lastly as a manager, assistant vice president. After 18 years of working with the bank, in February 1994, I was laid off. The banking business was going through deregulation, and many banks were being bought out by the bigger banks. Banks were consolidating small offices with bigger offices, and thousands of employees nationwide lost their jobs, especially middle management like myself. I was a single parent with 2 daughters. Barbie was 12 years old and Nicole 4 years old. At this time, I began to look for a new job. I first applied and took a civil service clerk test for a government job in February of '94 at an old military base in San Bernardino, California. Months later, the letter I received from OPM stated that I passed the test and my name was placed on a waiting list. With all my banking experience, I was hoping that the IRS would contact me. But instead, in June of 1994, I received a notice to appear for a job interview with the Immigration and Naturalization Service, known as INS. I was interviewed by Mr. Rossetti and Mr. Turner. I felt it was a good interview, but at the end, I was doubtful I would get the job because Rossetti stated that I was overqualified. A year later, I received a phone call from INS offering me the job if I was still interested. I accepted. My official EOD was July 9, 1995. I was so excited to finally have a full-time job again. All I wanted was to work and provide for my family. In July 1995, I was assigned to work in the office of Jane Arellano as a clerk. At the time, I didn't know that Jane was the head of such a large unit with so many employees, supervisors, and section managers. I was a quick learner and I adapted easily to the office. I handled the complaint window, I answered phone calls, kept up with the calendar, balanced the office petty cash, attended meetings, and kept the minutes. I also attended naturalization ceremonies with the boss at the convention center. I had the easiest and most stress-free job compared to the bank job. At the time, I thought I would only stay with INS for a short time because I was waiting for a job with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. A year later, in 1996, the Sheriff's Department finally contacted me for a job interview, and I took the appointment. A male lieutenant conducted the interview, and afterwards he offered me the job to work at the East Los Angeles office to be a 911 dispatcher. The next day, I met with Jane and I told her all about my LASD job interview. Jane, with all her wisdom, told me, "No, don't leave. You have a career with INS, which will be better than the sheriff's job." She gave me such a wonderful pep talk that by the end of the conversation, I decided to stay with INS. That night, I wrote a thank you letter to the lieutenant and declined the job, citing that I will remain with my current employer, INS. From that point on, I concentrated on my career with INS, and unknowingly, Jane became my mentor until she retired. I began to look for other job opportunities that came along. Eventually, I signed up and took the Civil Service Officer test, hoping to pass and to get on the waiting list. In June 1999, the Upward Mobility Program for internal employees was offered for officer positions. The job required that employee graduate from the Immigration Academy at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, known as FLETC. If the employee failed at FLETC, they were guaranteed to return to their prior or equivalent position. Under that program, I took the immigration inspector test and passed. Shortly after, I passed the physical test, medical evaluation, and background checks. In the meantime, I was proactive studying immigration law, particularly admissibility law, deportation law, and most difficult, naturalization law. Finally, I was offered the immigration inspector position. Prior to leaving Jane's office, I was given a farewell party and I was off to work at LAX in June of 2000. After 1 month at LAX, I was sent to FLETC for training in Glencoe, Georgia. I was excited for a new adventure, but at the same time, I knew that not everyone who went to the academy passed. Even though I was guaranteed my old position back if I failed, I didn't want to fail. By this time, Barbie had left home and married. My mother and father cared for Nicole as I left for Glencoe in July of 2000. I had a wonderful experience at Glencoe. Although it was very stressful, my dorm room was nice and the campus was beautiful. The temperature in Glencoe was in the high 90s every day. Some days it rained and the humidity was high. There were bugs everywhere. I spent 4th of July, my birthday in September, Labor Day, and Nicole's first day of 4th grade at FLETC, but it was all worthwhile. The class schedule was from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., filled with various courses and activities. After dinner and even with the weekends off, I continued to study. It was intense. Academics included immigration law and other topics. Physical activities included fighting with the red man and self-defense training, taking driver training, and most stressful, shooting at the range. All that preparation and pre-studying that I did helped me because I was number 4 in my class. We started the class with 23 officers, but only 16 officers graduated, including myself. I was one of 4 females that graduated and 12 males. I returned home with my diploma of graduation, my credential, my badge, and most importantly, my .40 caliber semi-automatic 9mm Beretta. I worked at LAX inspections from June of 2000 until August 2008. I worked the 4-10 schedule, but the workday was usually 16 hours a day with mandatory overtime, working weekends, holidays, and at times night shifts. It was difficult. I conducted immigration inspections as passengers arrived by commercial flights, private aircraft, cruise ships, and cargo ships. In 2003, INS was abolished and the Department of Homeland Security was created. Inspections fell under the newly created Customs and Border Protection Agency under DHS. My new job title was now CVP officer. I was sent to the CVP Academy in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia for secondary processing. I attended training with CVP Officer Arambulo and other CVP officers from across the nation. In addition to my immigration duties, I was trained to conduct customs inspections and agricultural inspections. My new CVP officer job was now 3 jobs. I was a super CVP officer. Although I loved being a CVP officer, after 8 years, I began to search for career advancement opportunities. Then in 2008, I applied for the immigration officer position with the newly created Fraud Detection and National Security Unit in Los Angeles, known as FDNS. Shortly thereafter, I was selected as an FDNS immigration officer. On August 31st, 2008, I entered on duty with FDNS. Since 2008 to the present, I work in the Los Angeles office and most recently in Pasadena at the newly created Historical Fingerprint Enrollment Unit. In September of 2008, I attended FOBTC training in Laguna Niguel with Monroy and other officers, making new friends. I worked in so many cases pursuing immigration benefit fraud. I liaison with law enforcement agencies, and I was a task force officer with ICE in the DPF-TF task force. In 2010, I attended journeyman training in Dallas, Texas, again learning new things, making lifetime friends and contacts. In 2016, I attended journeyman training in Charleston, South Carolina with immigration officers Julie, Wade, and Jesus, which also gave us an opportunity for sightseeing on weekends. Working at FDNS was challenging but rewarding. Our unit had a balance of work and social activities such as team building events and quarterly training meetings. I will always remember our yearly Christmas holiday meetings and lunches, and winning the ugly sweater contest. Most recently, the FDNS Beach Bonfire was nice with family and friends in attendance. During a staff meeting in Pasadena, I met the USCIS director. I have enjoyed working with so many officers, supervisors, attorneys, and at the end with Leisha as my supervisor, Mark my current supervisor, and Dodie as chief. Now I am moving on to the next chapter in my life, retirement. I am grateful and blessed that I have made it this far. I am looking forward to traveling, spending time with my 2 daughters, Barbie and Nicole, my siblings, and friends.